9/11. So
Mm,
what's really interesting is everyone that's read my book or heard my keynote, you know my story, but Jamie has a story too. And just sidebar, I was also read Ozema St. John's memoir recently called An Urgent Life.
mm.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, no, but now I want to read it.
Yeah, and she shared her 9/11 story, and it just got me thinking. I was like, that's three books that came out in one year that shared our 9/11 story. Is it just like this coming of age thing? We're now 20 plus years away. Now
Mm.
people our age are now sharing our experiences because I don't know, I just haven't heard much other than the awful, stories that we hear on the anniversary, etc. And I don't hear a whole lot of like stories like you and I have. And
Right.
I think I'm just going to put this out there. I think it's because for many years at least I had like this survivor's guilt. So I wanted to save all that space, all that talking space for the people that truly lost big time on
Right.
that day, loved ones grieving, like the worst of the worst. So I never shared my story. And it wasn't until about 7 years ago, I went to this speaker seminar, how to be a better speaker, essentially. And the instructor was kind of like sharing his story and having this whole arc and blah blah blah, and then had us very quickly just get in a group, write something down, the low parts of your life, blah blah blah, and share your story. And oh my god, it came to me like so quickly, because at first I've been saying for years, I lived a pretty, normal childhood, blah blah blah, fine, I'm fine. And then all of a sudden it was like, bam, oh my God,
Mm.
I survived a terrorist attack on New York City right there, covered in ash and all of it. And I pretended like it didn't affect me.
Mm.
And then I started to dig a little deeper and connect the dots of how it actually has led me to where I am today, how it,
Mm.
completely changed the course of my career and my life. So I didn't want to skip over that.
Mm.
So can you share, a little bit about either the story or just how it's impacted you?
Yeah. I mean, like you, Jen, I was just so damn lucky. I always say I was
Mhm.
close enough, from the World Trade Center, not even a
Yeah.
mile, my office, but far enough away that in retrospect, I wasn't in any direct danger. But when that
Wow.
first place, our
How far is the
conference room,
Goldman?
what's
Sorry,
that?
how far is the Goldman building
Well,
from
at
World
the
Trade
time,
Center?
well, the new Goldman building where I left from is right across the street.
Oh,
But the
okay.
Goldman building I worked in was One New York Plaza, which is right next to South Ferry. So I want to
Okay.
say it was
Okay.
about a half a mile. It took me about 10
Mhm.
minutes to walk from the path to the office. So in
Yep.
retrospect, I was never, in danger. But
Mhm.
when that first plane hit, and the first plane I was on my phone, on my headset,
Mhm.
and the call went out and everything shook. And
Mhm.
our conference room windows overlooked the World Trade Center. And then, it was like, everyone stay in place, everyone stay in place. And at the time, I don't know if you remember this, but like 2 or 3 weeks before, someone had gotten caught in the Statue of Liberty. They were like skydiving. It was like something silly. And then a year or so before, I think either a Yankee or a Met was doing a private plane and crashed into a building
Oh gosh.
accidentally. So I thought it
Oh
was
my
just like a silly error, and we didn't know it was a big plane at the time, and we were watching the
God.
fire, and they were saying stay in place, and I was helping a colleague because her dad worked in the World Trade Center, and
Okay.
literally I
Okay.
saw the other plane through my window on the 48th floor, and then I was like, "Oh my god, what if there's a plane for every win?" And I'm on the
Right.
48th, the 48th floor. But I got out quickly. Every year I call
You
a colleague
actually
on s
disobeyed. I just want to point this
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
You disobeyed the orders to stay in place and you left, which is so
I did.
smart.
Because I was told by my mentor to. And I
Mhm.
every year, I call her and thank her. So I got out.
Mhm.
What I think why it was such a turning point to me, one, it started my, drug use of Xanax,
Mhm.
and we could talk more
Yeah.
about that. But
Yeah.
also, it was a turning point for me. And Jen, glad you asked the question because I'm seeing in a whole new light now. It was one of the major times that I didn't listen to my internal wisdom.
Mm. How so?
Like, this would have been the point. I had been at Goldman now for 3 solid years.
Mhm.
I had known this job wasn't aligned with my values. I
Mm.
knew I was doing it because I wanted to make my family proud. I knew I was also doing it because all those, no offense to you Wharton alums, but Wharton School of Business, Penn grads told me I never hack it there. And my gut
Ay,
said,
ay,
like,
ay.
leave. And I didn't. And I spent I mean, literally, I spent the next years with Xanax in my bloodstream and
Mm.
an army grade gas mask in my work bag
Ugh,
for years
chills
because
everywhere.
I would have nightmares. I mean, every
Mhm.
night of because then remember, then there was the anthrax and all that stuff.
Right,
And
right.
I just literally lived with like PTSD for years. And again,
Yep.
never really talked about it, Jen, because who
Never.
was I to say anything? No one I
Exactly.
loved died.
Mhm.
No one I knew. I mean, I knew sadly people who perished, but nobody in my
Yeah,
circle died. And Jamie, like,
right.
shut the heck up and be
Yeah,
grateful.
exactly. I felt the same exact way for so long, so
But
wow,
you can
thank
be
you.
grateful. Another
Yeah.
kind of bit of my wisdom in my 40s now is contradictory feelings can exist simultaneously, right?
Mhm.
Like, you could still
Yes.
be grateful and terrified.
Mhm.
You could still
Yeah.
feel lucky and gypped. And but back then I wasn't mature enough to know that it was black
Mhm.
and white. And so it was just I
Right.
was grateful and I buried my fear, with Xanax and wine and an army
Mhm.
grade gas mask in my backpack.
Okay, and I buried mine with wine and martial arts. So part of
There
it
you
was a
go.
healthy bury, the other not so much. But
Yep.
I do want when I was listening to your story, and was it your mom that said you have to go to the doctor, Jamie? Your
Yeah,
mom said that.
because I the stock market was closed. September 11th was a Tuesday, and the
Mhm.
stock market was closed until the next Monday. So,
Mm.
we were just like home and I just wouldn't get out of bed. I was so scared. I was so depressed. And so my mom's like, you have to go see your doctor. And that's when she gave me my first prescription for Xanax.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Which is so interesting.
it started off as a rescue inhaler,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
to get my butt on that first day back, and oh my gosh, the smells, the
Mhm.
burning. I mean, it
Yeah.
smelled like burning for months, and
Mhm.
again, I was lucky, I was grateful. I wasn't working in the pile.
Right.
I
Right.
hadn't buried someone, and I remember walking down, I guess it was Water Street from the ferry terminal and the South Street Seaport, and just armed guards at every corner with the bullets and just feeling like I was watching, I remember being a kid and like watching the war-torn Middle East, and that's what it seemed like. And so I took Xanax at first just to like
Mhm.
get me the guts to go in. And then, as I got more senior and opportunities were shown to me, and I always feel like as I got promoted higher and higher, the abuse, the harassment kind of met me and raised me. And I used
Mhm.
those pills to kind of
Mm.
help dull the inner turmoil I was constantly feeling,
Mm.
constantly knowing I was living against my values, constantly looking for ways to cope. And Xanax was my pal to get me
Yeah.
through.
Wow. I have questions, but I just want to say, just when I was listening again and heard your mom say, go to the doctor, I, I didn't do anything. I didn't go,
Mm,
and I just look back and I'm like, my only regret would be like going to see a counselor, a therapist, something. Now I didn't have a job, so I was out of because that day the building fell and it destroyed the building that I was working in.
mm.
So I was bartending to pay the bills that night. So I had to get back to doing something to earn money. I didn't have a salary. So like thinking of getting a therapist to me,
Yeah.
like it didn't even dawn on me. Like never even dawned on me because it would be so far like that's for people with good health insurance or that are really wealthy. Like I would never even think. But again, I'm sure there was lower cost counselors or something that I could have looked into back then. I just wish I had the
Yeah.
wherewithal to think of that. So again, anyone out there, this is just another call to there are resources depending on what you're going through, hotlines, you name it, to help walk you through these things. We don't have to do it alone. So, is there anything that you think you would have done differently now, as far as I know you're talking about the Xanax, like I understand, and again, this is so complicated because Xanax can be, a lifeline for some folks. And it definitely helped you propel you out of bed and into work. Do you
Yeah.
feel like it seems like you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, you stayed on it too long or you relied on too much?
Yeah,
Say
I
more about that.
relied on it too much. I stayed what as the years went on, and I'm in this world where I feel like I'm not being treated well. I'm not treating
Mhm.
others well in order to survive. I was scared out of my wits for years that I would have gotten blown up too. I mean, that eventually subsided, but I
Right.
realize now in retrospect, these were all just coping mechanisms, just bad choices I made to kind of anesthetize myself from what I was
Mm.
going through. I was basically just like a robot, like a money-making robot.
Yeah.
And that Xanax kind of helped me not
Mhm.
feel
Mm.
the pain, the frustration, etcetera. And so, yeah, it was listen, don't get me wrong, I think there's a place and a use for substances like that. I feel like for me, I used it as a crutch
Mhm.
to keep me from seeing what I needed to see, which was I needed to get the heck out of there.